Building our van with a high voltage system in it means that we must fit high voltage panels. But as you will now see, if you fit high voltage panels to your rig, you will get potentially a massive increase in the performance of your solar panels by increasing the voltage of those panels. That's what's coming up now. The 48 volt system that we are designing for the van means that the 48 volt batteries can't be charged effectively by the standard engine alternator or run-of-the-mill solar panels. So this little excursion that Heiner and I took in January turned out to be a real eye-opener. What are you looking at?
This is the 30 amp MPPT from Victron in my camper trailer with a 395 watt high voltage roof solar panel. This is the 30 amp MPPT in your Troopy, connected to two 300 watt solar blankets put in parallel. So we've got 600 watt of blankets for your Troopy, and we've got 395 watt of high voltage roof solar panel on my trailer, and we're just comparing them like for like. And you can see we've got a very high voltage here, roughly 60 volt for the roof solar panel. So it means we're only transporting a little current down, and then we get 28 amp charge current into the battery. And on your side we've got a low voltage solar panel, so we're only getting 15.5 volt and a high current, almost 20 amps, and that will give you about 21 amps into the battery. So this is so we can compare what high voltage solar panels do and what normal automotive low voltage solar panels do. And what we can see at the moment is that the high voltage solar panel, even though it's got a rating that is a lot less, is giving us a lot more charge current at the moment. Also in low light situations we want to find out what is performing better, what's got the better shading tolerance. I used to use shingled solar panels a lot, but I think that a high voltage solar panel has got another advantage even over shingled solar panels, because when you get a lot of shading on the roof, you generally get it all over the roof solar panel, not just in patches of it. So this might be the solution, because even in shading, in complete shading, I was getting close to 100 watt out of this solar panel before. And now with the sun that we've got available today, a 395 watt solar panel is producing, I've seen up to 420 watt and completely maxing out the 30 amp MPPT. So with two of these on the roof in 12 volt language, you get a 60 amp charge rate in quite ideal sunshine. We are in summer in WA at the moment, so the sun is quite intense.
With the 48 volt system that we're installing in the van, we don't actually have any choice, because most general 12 volt panels, that I know they don't operate at 12 volts, but they still don't operate high enough, do they, for a 48 volt system?
Even normal house panels haven't got a voltage that is high enough, because the 48 volt battery needs to be charged at roughly 56 volts, and normal house panels only give out roughly 50 volt open circuit voltage, so it's not going to be any good for us. We need at least 5 volts more than the highest charge voltage of the battery. So this panel here will actually work alright, because the open circuit voltage of this panel is about 75 volt. That's way over, which also means that we are creating a lot of current already early in the day, because the voltage shoots up really quickly.
We have now connected the 120 watt anamorphous panel to the Redoc DC charger, solar input, 300 watt, 300 watt. And the current we are currently getting, so this one is showing 600 watt of solar blanket in parallel,
Yeah.
the two panels. And here is a 395, so give it 400 watt high voltage panel.
Yes.
Producing 375, give or take, watts, 280, give or take, as the clouds move, of course.
Yeah.
That is why this is not
And it's
staying.
still filtering through clouds at the moment.
It is. What would happen if we took those two 300 watt panels and connected them in series, doubling the voltage?
Rather than the current, I think we would get a little bit more power out of them.
A little more or a lot more?
I'm not 100% sure. We'd have to try. I think we'd definitely get a bit more. That's for sure, because we get less transmission losses in the cable.
Yes.
Because by halving the amperage, we're going to halve the losses in the cable as well. But how much that is, I'm not 100% sure. It might be 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 watt more, but I can't quite say. We'll have to try, but we don't have.
We don't have the means right near. We don't have a series connector with us to do that test, which is a pity. It is very rare for any panel to reach the rated wattage output, but it's actually happened twice today with the high voltage panel on the camper that we're testing, and also at the moment on Heine's Hilux. It is at the moment. You're saying that it's what kind of panel is on top of here?
It's a 120 watt panel.
Yeah.
And we are getting 120 watt, 123 even, out of that panel at the moment. So it means the UV radiation today is really intense. One thing this shows, because this is a framed panel as well, with the glass top on it. There's still a big difference in between solar blankets and framed solar panels with a glass cover on top of it. They always seem to be performing a lot better and a lot closer to their maximum rated wattage than the blankets do. This is a solar panel cooling system, because when your solar panel voltage isn't high enough, it's usually because the panel has gotten too hot. And then when you use a Victron MPPT, its start voltage needs to be 5 volt higher than the battery voltage. And once these panels get too hot, the MPPT doesn't start anymore. So you need a very sophisticated solar panel cooling system, like this green canister here. So we've just poured water on the panels. They were stable at 240 watt before. Now that they've cooled down a little bit, the voltage is rising up a bit from the panel, and we got almost 100 watt more out of the two panels just because they're cooled down a bit now. If we wait until all the water has evaporated, the panel heats up, you will see that the wattage is dropping again. That's a big difference in between a high voltage panel, where, see, the voltage has dropped a bit as well, from 64 volt MPPT to roughly 60, bit under 60, but it's not a big problem. But here, if it drops down too far, we're getting too close to the battery voltage, and the MPPT struggles to get enough power out of those panels.
So what you're saying is that solar blankets buy according to minimum voltage. Now, what does it say? You know, what are we looking for to get optimum performance from a solar blanket in high heat? That minimum voltage. What is it called? Minimum open circuit voltage?
Maximum power point voltage.
Maximum power point voltage. Ideally, it should be
at least 18 to 19 volt for maximum power point voltage is good, because it gives you a bit of leeway towards the battery voltage. And it will say something like open circuit voltage to be 22, 23, 24 volts, somewhere there. If you can get higher, even better. There are solar blankets that have got 40 volt open circuit voltage. If you can get those, that's even better, but they are rare in the automotive industry, and they will not work with most MPPTs, because you need an MPPT that can handle higher voltage, and most of the automotive MPPTs cut out at 31.5 volt. So it's higher voltage is better, but you have to make sure you got the equipment to accommodate it.
Match it to accommodate it. By far the most efficient solar regulator is called a maximum power point tracker, MPPT. I asked Heine to explain it.
To explain a maximum power point tracker in a real basic simple way, what it does is it always multiplies the voltage by the current, and that gives you the electric power. So what happens is when it starts, it pulls a certain current out of the panel, then measures that current, multiplies it with the voltage of the panel, and it gives you a power figure. Now it goes, cool, this is my starting point. I'll now draw a little bit more current out of that panel. So it means the voltage drops, the current goes up, it multiplies the two with each other. And if the power figure is now a bit higher than the power figure that it had before, it draws a little bit more current out. And it does that until the power figure is a bit lower than the power figure before. And then it goes in the other direction. It eases off on drawing current. Multiplies it with the voltage, because now the voltage will rise a bit, the current will drop a bit, and look, is that figure now higher than the figure before? And that's how it's always going up and down and up and down, and constantly tracking for the best maximum power point where the figure of voltage times current is the highest. And if you look at the app where you can see what's happening, you see even in stable conditions, there's usually a little bit of fluctuation. That is because the tracker is constantly tracking and trying to get better than the measurement before.
How quickly does it track it? How, once every second, once every 10 seconds?
That really depends on the quality of your tracker. A really good tracker does that multiple times a second. It will just very, very quickly. A tracker that is not so good will do that every few seconds, maybe every 10 seconds, really depends on. But now you see, it is quite important that you have a tracker that is really quick, because it will adapt to conditions, especially if you're driving. Let's say you're driving and you drive under trees and you don't, and you drive under trees and you don't. You want to have a tracker that quickly loads up the panel again and then quickly eases off and loads it up and eases it off for roof panels on your vehicle. If you got a tracker there that only adjusts every 5 seconds, you'll be in the shade and then you'll be in the sun for 5 seconds and then you'll be in the shade and nothing ever happens from your solar panel. So a fast tracker for roof solar panels on a vehicle is quite important.
Right, the sun has gone down and we're now going to make a direct comparison, what has happened during the day. We had mostly cloudy, partly cloudy for most of the day. From about 2 p.m. or so, sun came out really bright, and let's now have a look at and compare the two panels. Okay, explain what we are looking at.
That's the two solar blankets. So you have produced 2.08 kilowatt hours and you peaked at 379 watt. And then that's the 395 watt panel on the camper. That's produced 2.2 kilowatt hours, peaked at 415 watt. You can see the big voltage difference. That's the maximum voltage of the roof solar of the camper, and that's the solar blanket maximum voltage.
Conclusion.
Your blankets suck ass.
Not to put a too fine a point on it. So the question therefore is, if I'm going to carry solar blankets, should I get one large low voltage solar panel like the 300 watt red arc panels that we've been using, or should I go out and get something a little bit different? So this is my idea, and this is what we are now going to test. This is also an Australian company, also like Red Arc, made in China. Going to try this. This is a 200 watt low voltage solar panel. Well, what happens if I wire them in series? Of course, I could use the Red Arc 120 watt anamorphic and wire those in series. But I'm not going to try that option because that has priced itself out of the market. They are so expensive that I kind of don't understand why they even exist. It is possible that they are more efficient in low light than monocrystalline panels and similar, but for the price, nope. Heiner has joined me for this little test as well, and we're going to try and get as much as we possibly can out of these blankets. We're now trying the two 300 watt red arc panels in both parallel and in series.
That is in series now, so let's see what that's doing and then we compare it to in parallel.
Okay.
So we're getting 377 watts, but we've got 600 in total. So it'll be interesting to see what happens now if we put it in parallel. But I mean, we're getting good charge out of those, about 26 amps, that's nice, especially on a day like today. So now have a look at that. That is a massive difference. It's exact same conditions.
Massive difference.
Now that is a big difference. That is a good conclusion.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take two of these. These are 200 watts panels. I'm going to set them up in the same area. These are far easier to handle because it has a handle, and while they won't be quite as easy to stow in the vehicle because they are larger, they are going to be easier to put up with these little feet. Gives me this angle. Both of those 200 watt panels running in series. What have we got? We've got our voltage of 34 volts. Our current flowing is 7 amps, give or take. And of course, the most important part is that the current flowing into my battery at the moment is sitting around 17 amps. We are about to learn that while both of these panels are rated at low voltage, one is a little bit more than the other, and that, as it turns out, makes a huge difference. That has increased it to 20 amps by lying them flat.
Yeah.
It is 1 o'clock, and it's
Yeah, lying them
so
down.
the angle is too acute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So what's the voltage we're running on now? 33 volts.
33 volts.
Okay. So means we've got 400 watts of panels now, and we're getting 270 out of it. But we've got a fair bit of smoke in the air around here.
A lot.
So you can see the sun is slightly orange, so it means we're not getting full UV. Do you want me to put that in parallel and compare them with each other?
Let's do that.
Okay. I mean, we haven't got a problem with these panels turning on because the open circuit voltage is a lot higher, but the maximum power point voltage, the regulator is putting a fair bit of load onto the panels by drawing them down quite far. So we're getting slightly less, but it's marginal to me at the moment.
Yeah.
I think a good conclusion here is if you have got a solar panel where the voltage of the solar panel itself is high enough so it can be drawn down a fair bit, then it doesn't matter as much if you put it in series or parallel. But if it is a panel where the voltage is already quite low of the panel itself, then it really pays to put it in series to increase the voltage, because then you can put more load onto it, draw the voltage further down, and actually get proper load out of the panel.
The other ones didn't make a big difference.
No.
This is making a massive difference.
But that has got its maximum power point at 15 volt,
Yes.
which is really close to 14 volt
Yes.
charge voltage.
Yes.
Sort of. The other ones had their maximum power point at 18.5, 19 volt.
Right.
You got a bit of a gap, so
Right.
they can be drawn down a fair bit.
Right.
That is something to look out for when you buy panels.
Right.
Voltage matters.
Voltage matters, and obviously the Amtrons are performing a lot better.
Because they
Because
got
the
a higher
voltage
voltage, yeah.
is higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've concluded the van, we're going high voltage on the van. We have to, we don't have any choice.
Yes.
Okay, because of the 48 volt system. Before I ask you the final conclusion on, because I want to help people who are not building 48 volt systems, building ordinary 12 volt systems.
Yeah.
Should they buy 2 small panels and wire them up in series, or 1 larger panel? And the other thing is that I think we should test the high voltage panel that we want to use, because we've got a sample of it, the actual one we want to use on the van, and we should plug it in right now and see what we get out of it.
Ah, absolutely we should.
Yeah, we should do that?
Yeah.
Okay. This then is the Amtron 200 watt high voltage panel that we are proposing to put on the van. And it is, what's it doing?
It is producing around 150 watt at 63 volt. So that would definitely be good to charge a 48 volt battery. We're getting about, it's fluctuating a bit, about 11 amps into the battery. So this is also a good indication that we are not getting full sunshine at the moment. The smoke in the air prevents that, because we would be getting same conditions as we tested the other panels. We would be getting roughly 200 watts out of that panel. Means it would produce up to 15 amps, but we're stuck at about 150 watt at the moment at 11 amps. It is a really good comparison because that is a 200 watt panel and those blankets are 200 watt panels as well. Now there's always a difference in between blankets and proper aluminium frame panels with glass over the top. The blankets are never as efficient. If you have a look there, there's not much difference where they're lying, so they're getting the same sunshine. We're getting 280 watts out of 2 of those blankets, which means in reality that's about 140, 130-ish somewhere, where it was fluctuating before 260 to 280. We're getting more out of that panel. That's one thing that I've always found with blankets and proper hard frame panels. The blankets are never as close to their wattage that they're claiming as the panels are.
It's difficult to actually come up with a very, very clean, simple conclusion.
It is. I mean, there is one, I think, if you go for hard frame panels, because you want to put panels on a roof,
yes,
you never use a blanket, obviously.
Yes.
Then go as high voltage as possible.
Right.
Obviously not past 110 volt, because that's the legal limitations you have to stay
and
under.
There is also a limitation of your own MPPT charger.
Yes.
Will have a maximum voltage.
Yes.
Okay.
So
okay.
most of the Victron ones would be 100 amp, you know,
Victron's
the 100/30.
Higher than average, yes.
But if you go for a red arc controller, they usually can't handle high voltages, so you have to use a low voltage panel anyway. And I would recommend that if you do roof solar, use a controller that can handle high voltage and use a high voltage panel. I think we've seen that the 48 volt panels, I call them now, that sit somewhere at around 65 volt when they're charging. That's a good panel to put on your roof. No matter if it's shingled or not, it will perform well even with partial shading. And then if you use blankets, I think we've shown that it's very important that the blanket voltage is high enough. So these get really hot because you lie them on a hot surface already. There's no ventilation underneath the panel whatsoever, different to a proper roof installation. So with those, it's important to have enough voltage gap to your charge voltage. So ideally you have something that has got at least 18 volt or more maximum power point voltage. So you gotta look out for that maximum power point voltage.
Okay.
Those panels there at 15 volt, we would have to try what they do with the PWM controller to charge into the battery, but those with the maximum power point tracker is tricky.
But maximum power point is the best and most efficient type of solar tracking regulator.
Absolutely is.
So
yes.
Those are the ones we should focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. It might perform differently if connected to a Red Arc BCDC or Red Arc Manager, because they might handle their voltages differently and maybe they allow to go closer to the battery voltage. I'm not sure of the internal specs of the Red Arc BCDC and managers. Maybe there's a slight difference, but with Victron, with the system that we've been monitoring at, I would not recommend those. I would recommend blankets that have got a higher voltage.
Okay.
Because we can see we get more out of it. Or you get 2 and put them in series like we just did,
yep,
and then they're performing beautifully. So there's nothing wrong with the panel. The only problem is that the voltage with heat drops down too low. So that'd probably also be really good if you're in snow. Let's go.
Are you building vans and struggling with getting your electrical systems installed to a very high standard and at a low cost? At Egon, we have the solution for you. Introducing the Egon DC Hub. We have taken decades of experience in the Australian outback and developed a single unit that does all the difficult wiring chores for you, where all the wiring ends up. The reason why that's a good idea is that because the connections are such high quality, you don't need heat shrink, you don't need to solder or crimp lugs. No longer necessary. All you need is a screwdriver, and you put the cables in. These clamp them down properly. Voltage drop is reduced significantly. Labor time is reduced enormously. And because it's an integral fuse box with indicating little LEDs that come on if a fuse should blow, everything is in one place. Including connections to your house battery, your starter battery, your chargers, your solar inputs, combined rated to 150 amps. But perhaps even more importantly, because it is so simple and because it is so idiot-proof, a reduction in warranty claims, comebacks and faults. You can now, using this unit, install a complete system in a four-wheel drive, in a van, in a camper trailer, using basic skills, really fast, incredibly reliable, high quality finished product. If this has sparked your interest, reach us on egon.com.au on how you can use the Egon DC Hub in your next build.